take or not. Okay, so today we are moving on to loops in Python. So loops has to do with going through or iterating something over and over again. So this is very a common practice in all programming languages because there could be times that you have a number of items that you want to perform a specific task on each of them. Let's say you have a list of values, and to each of the items in the values, and each of the item or each of the value in the list, you want to add, let's say, 2. So with this, you without loops, you have to pick each of the items at their particular indexes. Please, I hope I'm audible to. Please, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you would like to, add a factor of 2 to each of the items within the list. So without loops or without the looping function, you see that you have to collect each of the numbers at their specific indices, and then after that, you have to add the 2 to it individually. Okay, so it's going to be a long process because first you have to collect each of the items, add the 2 to it. When you're done, you put it back into a list. So that's going to be a lot of work, very tedious. So the loops were implemented in order to perform such calculations over a data structure without without changing the items or the values within that data structure one by one. Okay. All right. So it says that imagine you are a junior analyst and your manager drops a spreadsheet on your desk. It has 800 rows of patient glucose readings. Your task is to go through every row and flag and flag anyone above 126 as high risk. So this is kind of a real time or real world data science scenario, whereby you have a whole column. You need to go through and maybe separate. Okay, this one belongs to this category. That person belongs to that category. When you try to do this manually, I mean, the use of computers um, wouldn't be so useful because computers are supposed to make certain tasks that we do more easily. Okay, so instead of you going through and writing code to check for each particular item with loops, you can just write a line of code that will go through all the column of that particular table and flag those that they have glucose level above 126 high risk. Yes. All right. So it's also useful when you combine the loops with a conditional statement. So kind of the loops go hand in hand with conditional statement. So once you have a conditional statement or a condition that you want to apply to a particular data set, and you are not just applying it to a single item, but a whole column of a data set, what you can do is that you use the loop. So you create the loop, and then after the loop, you create your conditional statement, which should satisfy under your loop, or which should be satisfied under your loop. All right, so I think that is just a brief introduction to loops. So when you come to Python, Python has one, one loop keyword called the for loop. Okay, so the for over there is a keyword in Python. And the for runs a block of code once for every item in a collection. So it's more of like I have a list of values. Okay, so let me just try the place and then just rehearse. Okay, so maybe I need a cell below. All right, so maybe I have a list of items. Let me call it um, fruit. Okay, and that's going to be a list of fruits which are all strings. or text. Apple, strawberry. I guess strawberry is it's a fruit. Then what again? And banana. Okay. All right. So maybe for each of the items within the list, you want to do something. So Python adopts that kind of English language. Okay. When you say that for each of the item within the list, perform a particular action. Okay. So for each of the item within a list, do something. So in this case, we have a list of fruits over here. So for each of the items, and which for each of the fruits within the fruit list, maybe perform some action, maybe delete it, or maybe add something to it, modify it in some way, or for each of the fruits in the fruit list. If the fruit is apple, print apple. If the fruit is strawberry, print strawberry. This is in a case whereby we want to print each of the items within the list, provided they exist. All right, so that is just how it works. And this is how the syntax looks. So the syntax goes kind of similar to that of the conditional statement. So for variable in collection, whereby the variable will be a representative of the items within your collection. The collection could be a list, it could be a tuple, it could be a dictionary, it could even be sets. So it could be any of the data structures that we've learned earlier. So let me build it again. Let me actually reiterate that part because the syntax is also important and understanding it is crucial. So for, which is the keyword, variable in, okay. So for variable, which is the individual item, so you are assigning a variable to each of the items within your collection, whereby your collection stands for your data structures. Do something with the variable. So you can see that we have a variable here and then a variable there. And I've said that the variable selects each of the items within your collection, which is your data structure. And the rest of the code below is either you do something with the variable or you do a different task. All right. So let's get to an example. Okay, so we have a list over here. Okay, so a clinic recorded patient names that greet every patient by name, same message for 5 different people. So here we have 5 different people: Amma, Kofi, Yao, Ifwa, and then Kwesi. And all that we want to do is to write a code that greets them by their name. Now, considering the for loop syntax that we learned, we say that we have the for keyword, we have a variable, and then a collection, as we saw over here in a collection. So all that we are saying is that for the variable represents each of the items within the list. So in this case, each of the items in the list has been assigned the variable name. So when you're looking for name is Amma. When you're looking for name is Kofi. When you're looking for name is Ya. When you're looking for name is Afua, and the rest. So for variable, which is the name in collection, the patient, which is your list, print good morning, comma, name. So in this case, it's going to pick the first variable. So for name, what's the first variable, or the first item within the list is Amma. So first you're going to say for Amma in patients, which is the list, print good morning, Amma. Then it move on to the next one until the items within the list are exhausted. Let's see this in real action. Okay, so you could see that by just this code, we've printed good morning, Amma, good morning, Kofi. However, without the loop, we are going to print this good morning, Amma, good morning, Kofi, how many times? 5 times. Okay, so actually that is how the for loop works. Okay, let's go to another example and let's build the intuition much more deeper. Okay, so here, convert every temperature in Celsius to Fahrenheit. Okay, and the formula to convert temperature to Fahrenheit, sorry, temperature in Celsius, I mean degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit, is C times 9 over 5, all into brackets plus 32. Okay, whereby the C is the temperature in degrees Celsius. So we have a list of temperature readings. Okay, this could be temperature readings of patients, and we want to convert it to Fahrenheit, maybe for a particular reason. Okay, so we are going to use the same for loop syntax. So for Celsius in Celsius reading, what we are trying to say is that for each of these items in this list, so for each of the items in the list, we are creating a new variable. So we say Fahrenheit is equals to Celsius, which is this Celsius, representing each of the items within the Celsius reading, times, this is how we represent times, I hope you remember that, the star sign, times 9 over 5, so we put those ones into brackets, plus 32. Print Celsius, so that's going to print this one, and then comma degree C. So this is a string that we are attaching to it. So if it is the Celsius is 36, it's going to be, sorry, 36.6, it's going to be 36.6 degrees. And then here we are using a useful function over here called the round. Okay, so the round actually rounds the number, the decimal number, by the parameter that you provide, the second argument that you provide. So we are going to round this Fahrenheit, which is the calculation here, or the outcome of this calculation. We are going to round it to one decimal place. So we provided 1 over here, comma, then we are adding this string to it, degrees Fahrenheit. Let's see it in real action. So simply and very fast, now we've been able to convert all the degrees Celsius readings into Fahrenheit. So 36.6 degrees Celsius is equivalent to 97.9 degrees Fahrenheit. And you could see that all the decimal points, the number of decimal places is 1 because of this. However, let's try and put it to 2. So now it will move to 2. If you do it 3, it will just move to 3. So here the round function will actually round your decimal values to a specific number which you provide as a second argument to the decimal value. So here when I did 3, it didn't show any 3 because the values, the number of decimal places is not up to 3. That's why. Okay, so let me put it to the 1. Okay, that's that. So let me just build one last intuition before we move on. So what is happening in this particular code is that for Celsius in this, so for this item, so it will first pick the 36. So for 36 in degrees Celsius, Fahrenheit equals to 36 times 9 over 5 plus 32. Print 36, which is your value, degrees Celsius equals to round. Then here, the answer that you will get when you perform this calculation will be here. So you round that answer to the 1 decimal place, and then you have your Fahrenheit notation here. So you can see that here we have the 36 over here, and then the Fahrenheit notation, and the Fahrenheit round to 1 decimal places and its notation over here. So it repeats this for all the items in the list. So to expand our curiosity, we can also modify the code by adding, let's say, 37.7 to it. So when you run the code, you see that that one has been added and it calculates its Fahrenheit automatically. So basically, that is how the for loop works, and that is how Python reads it. So it loops or iterates through all the items within the list by giving them a placeholder variable, which you will provide here. All right. So I have some sample exercise here for you to do where you convert, I think, write a loop convert each price to Ghana cedis. Okay, so this one is in US dollars, so you're converting it to Ghana cedis. You just have to know the formula, and you run a loop on it, and it's going to do that for you simply. Okay, so that is the first portion of Python for loop. We also have accumulator pattern. So one of the most important patterns in data analysis is building a result gradually as you look through a data set. You start with an empty container or a zero value, and with each iteration you add to it. By the time the loop stops, you have processed the entire data set. All right, so this is how it looks. This pattern appears in three forms. So running total, added up values or building a list or counting or incrementing. So there are times that you are looping through something and you want to know the number of times that you are looping through it. So with that one, you can use an accumulator. So you can use an accumulator to accumulate or increment or to track how the number of times that the loop is occurring, okay? Or you can build a list. Maybe you perform some calculation and you want to store the value. So you can create an empty list whereby each of the values that you get, you will append it to the list. Okay, we remember that using the append method, you can add items to the list, new items to the list. So that is how the accumulator works. So it's a way of kind of storing values or tracking a particular value or keeping track of of your loop. Okay, so let's see how it works. All right. So running total. So calculate the total weekly sales. This is the same as summing up a column in a data set. All right. So I think one of us made a mention that when we were giving kind of a tuple, he wasn't able to add the items within the tuple. Okay, so let's see how we can do that here. All right. So this code creates a list called daily sales, okay? And we want to calculate the total weekly sales. So the daily sales as to the sales that we have each day for the entire week, okay? So we say that total equals to 0. So what we are doing is that the total sales that we will have per the week, we have assigned it to 0, meaning that it is empty, it is 0. Okay, so what we are going to do is that we are going to run a for loop through these values, whereby we will increment, or we are going to add this value to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. So let's see that one in real action. So we are saying that for sale in daily sales. So I know that this one we understand it. What are we supposed to do? We are creating a variable. So the variable is equals to total, which is this total plus sale. Okay, so what happens is that if we take this sale, the first sale, that what's 1,200. So let me say this, Python, when you use the same variable name twice, the second variable overrides the first one. And so the first variable inherits the value of the second variable. Okay, so if the sale is equal to 1,200, then you're going to get 1,200 plus the 0. So now the total value is now 1,200, which is now stored here. We are going to have 40 50 plus 1450. But we know that total because this new total variable that we've created here will be inherited by this one. And so when you call for the total, you're not going to get the 0 because the new values that you'll be getting here will actually be inherited. And so the total is going to give you the sum of the values over here. Let's run it and see it in action. So you see that we have 9,380, which is a summation of the individual values within the list. Okay, so up to this stage, please, do we understand? Is it clear, or is there something that I should throw much more light on?
Please throw a little light on it for our sake.
On which part?
Daniel.
Yes, Grace.
Yes,
Grace,
is it not confusing that total is equal to total plus sale? Can we just make it like total sale is equal to total plus sale since the total is equal to 0? I don't know.
Okay, so let me go through it again, starting from your question, Grace. So, okay, so if we say total sales, then it means that we are not accumulating. Okay, the reason why we are saying that total equals to total plus sale, it's simple. So we've assigned the initial total value to 0 because we don't know, we have not done any addition. But what we want to do is that for each of the each of the sales in the daily sales list, we want to add it to the total. So if we take the first one, that becomes our total. When we take the second one, we add it to the first one to become our new total. So when we take the third one, we add it to the total of this to become our new total. So it's kind of, we are updating our total. Okay. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So here, this total over here is what we are updating, and we are updating it by the values of the daily sales list. So when you take the sale over here, which is the individual items within the list, what happens is that we are saying that this total that we created earlier is the same variable that we are using. It's equals to the total, which is this value that the total represents. So this one becomes a new variable. However, because its value, or the text is the same as this, it's inherited. However, this value over here represents the total over here, which is a 0. Okay, so total equals to this total plus the sale. So once you go through the loop once for the first item, the 1,200, because it's going to, the first one will be 0 plus, which is the total, plus the 1,200. So that's after the first round of the loop, the total is going to be 1,200. Then we are just incrementing, or we are updating this total. Okay, so if this total is now 1,200, then we want to update it with the second sales in the daily sales list. So that's going to be total will be equals to the 1,200 that we have earlier, plus the new sale, which is the 1,450, to give you a new value. That will be the second loop. And then the third loop, the total variable will be updated. It will be updated consistently until all the items in the loop, in your list is done. Please, you get it? So it's a way of updating it. I hope I've been able to convince you a bit.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I think James also asked the question. James, I hope I've been able to convince you also. Okay, good. So let's take another one and let's see how it works. Okay. So we have glucose readings. Okay. And our goal is to compute the average, okay, the average of the glucose readings. But before we can compute any average, which is the mean, we need to sum the items within within the list and then divide it by the length, which is the number of items within the list. So sum of the items within the list and the length of the items within the list. So what we are going to do is that we are going to assign the total glucose value to 0 and then update it by adding the initial glucose value to its next one, and then and it continues till the values in the list are all done. So here we assign it to 0. So we are saying that for reading in glucose readings, meaning that for each of the items within the glucose readings, the total glucose equals to total glucose plus reading, which is this particular initial 0 plus the first reading for the first loop, and then that one. So once you do that, the total glucose reading will inherit this 148, because that 148 plus 0 will give you 148, and that will be the new value of the total glucose. Then the second loop, when Python select the 95, it's add up to it. Then the third loop, 180. So we kind of adding. So all that we are doing is kind of like this, something like this. Okay. So pick this one, add it to this. The value that you get, add it to this. The value that you get, add it to this. The value that you get, add it to this. The value that you get, add it to this. Kind of. Okay. I think when we're in JHS, we used to do some math like that. Okay, so you pick this one, you add it to this. The value that you get, you add it to the next one. You add it to the next one. So you get to the last one. That is what this code is doing, this particular code. They say that pick this reading, and then to the reading, add it to 0 to get your first reading, because the first reading, it should be the same number. So 0 plus any number is the same number. So that is the logic over there. Then once you are done, pick that same number, add it to this. The total that you get, it becomes your total. Then you use that total to add to the next, to the next, to the next. Okay. All right. So once we are done, we have our total reading. So average glucose will be equal to the total, which is the sum of the values over here, divided by the length of the glucose reading, which is the length over here. I mean, using the length function, we know that the length function retains the length of any data structure. So once you do that, let's see what we have. So the total glucose readings is 1035. The number of patients is 8, because the length of the glucose reading is 8. And then the average glucose level is 129.38. Very simple. And this thing is maybe as we move on, we will be using the mean function. But if there is no mean function, this is how you do it. And this particular list over here can be a column of your data set where you have the readings of the glucose readings of your patient, and that you want to find the mean. Okay, so you can just use this for loop to achieve that. All right. Okay. So that one has to do with that, with the accumulating, that's in the incrementing or summing up items within a data structure. Now we can also move on to building a new list. Okay, so we want to store the outcome of a particular mathematical operation. So what do? So let's get right to action so that we see it ourselves, because we build the understanding from the previous one and it's nothing different. So instead of we using 0, we are using an empty list over here. So we have our raw values over here. Okay, and our task is to create a new column that converts raw scores into letter grades. Okay, so based on your score, we are going to attach a grade to it. So this is what we are doing. And here it's kind of a bit cumbersome, because we are uniting both the looping and also the conditional statement. Now let's see what the code does. So for score in raw scores, meaning for each of the items in this raw score list, if score is greater than 80, grade equals to A. If score is greater than 70, grade equals to B. If score is greater than 60, grade equals to C. else grade equals to F. Sorry, grade equals to F. So grades dot append grade. So we could see that these grades over here is the empty list that we've created over here. And then we are saying that for each of these, run these conditions. So if you run the condition, so it will pick first the 78. So that will become our first score. So if the 78 greater than 80, if that is true, the grade will be equals to A. And then Python is going to append the grade value, which is the A, to your list. Okay, meaning that append means to add to it. Okay, so but however, if it is B, it will do that. So once it's done with the first item in your list, it moves to the 65, then it goes to the 91, then so on and so forth till all the items in the list has been exhausted. Okay, so once we are done, we are saying that print scores, comma, raw scores, which is your raw score, your list, and then your grades, which is the new list that you've built. Let's see that in action. All right, so we can see that the code works so marvelously. So 78 is a B, 65 is a C, 91 is a A, 55 is an F, right? Because it says that if you have if you do not get anything greater than 60, or if all these conditions are not satisfied, it means that your grade is F and the person had 55, so F. 88 is A, 72 is B, 84 is A, and so on and so forth. So the last one. Okay, so in this case, we have appended, or we've performed what we call accumulation, list accumulation, or creating a new list by looking at a particular condition. If the condition which satisfy is being added to the list for the entire items within your raw score list. Please, I hope we understand. Do we understand? Okay, maybe someone is using an emoji, but I'm not seeing it. But I hope we understand. Okay, good. All right, so let's make progress. I think so. The same thing over here, the same syntax. We are looking for a condition. If there is a condition, so let me talk about this. So this is what we call the counter. Okay, so the counter, this is how it works. So glucose reading, diabetic count. Okay, so we are starting from 0. So therefore, reading in glucose reading, if reading is greater than 126, so here our task is to count the number of patients who are diabetic, because if your glucose level is greater than 126, we consider you to be a diabetic. So what are we doing? So we are saying that if it is greater than, if it is greater than 126, diabetic count, which is this, the same thing over here, plus equals to 1. So this notation over here is the same as writing like diabetic equals to diabetic count plus 1. Okay, so Python has a shorter way of representing this just by deleting this. Okay, all right, so now we have this. Okay, so what it's doing is that it is updating this particular list based on the counting. So for each of the items over here, which has reading greater than 126, there's going to be an addition of 1 to your diabetic count value. So here it is initially 0. So if we find 1, the first value will be 1. If we find another one, it will be 2. If we find another one, it's going to be 3, and so on and so forth. So let's see that one in action. All right, so the total number of patients over here is the length of it, which is 10. High glucose count. Okay, so the high glucose count is the diabetic count. So the number of people who have high glucose level greater than 126 is 1. This is because when you look through this list, it is where is it? Because when you look through this list, the values which are greater than 120, they are how many? Sure. Okay, I think I'm not doing something right here. As it's supposed to. Good. So greater than 126 is 5. So you have 148, 180, 162, 140, and then 155. They are 5. So by incrementing it, that's what you have. So you have your 5. And then normal glucose, which is the length minus the diabetic count. So here is just a simple um, kind of rationale. So if the length total number of glucose is 10, and out of it 5 is diabetic. So if we want to find those that they have normal glucose level, we just have to subtract. So that's how we have the length over here, which returns the total number minus the number of the patients who are diabetic. However, let's rehearse by adding 200 to it. So I want you to predict what will be the outcome when we add 200 to it. What do you think the output will be? And please, can you get me? Do you get me? Did you get me? Or do you understand the question that I'm trying to pass across? If I add 200 to it, what do you think will be the output? So the total number of patients will be how many?
7.
Okay, and high glucose count will be the high glucose count will be okay. And please come again with the answer.
6.
6. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. And then the normal glucose count is going to be the normal glucose count is going to be what? So that's going to be
5.
11 minus 6. That's going to be 5. All right. So that is that. I mean, that is all about the loops. Very simple. So you can use the loop to also find the minimum and then the maximum. Though we have functions that can return the minimum and then the maximum for you easily. But maybe you like to build your understanding of the loops. So you can use this particular code to figure out which of the items within the list is the minimum and which of them is a maximum. All right, so I'm not going to go through it. I think once you have the code, it's easy to follow along if provided you understand the previous ones, so you can just follow along to get the outcome. So here it's going to return to you the best sale is Thursday and then the worst sale is Wednesday by just calculating the maximum value and then the minimum value and um, um, its particular day. Okay. All right. So let me come to the range function. Okay. So we loop with index positions. So we know that for a list also have index positions. Initially, we have been using each of the items by themselves, but we can also use their position, which is their indices, to also figure out, to also create a loop or to loop through the individual items. All right, so let's get to action. So we use the range function for that particular task, and the range, let's say when you give a range, when you provide 5 as an argument for the range function, it outputs 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which are 5 values. And the reason why you are not seeing 5 is because Python starts counting from 0. Okay. However, if you want to specify 1 to 6, we know that when you have a range, this is kind of a slice. The last value, when you have two values, two arguments, where you have the starting value and then the ending value, the ending value is not included. Okay. So here you're going to start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 without the 6. However, you can also have three arguments where we have the starting value, ending value, and then the incremental value. So this means that this is the step. So how many steps should I make from the starting point? So starting from 0, make 2 steps. Here we have so 0 plus 2 step. We are going to get 2. Then that's 4, and the last number is not included. That's why you can't find a 10 over there. Okay, so let's see that one in real action. So student names equals to that, and then exam score equals to that. So we are saying that for I in range len, student names. So what we are trying to say is that when you run this len student names, what do you think we will get? We will get how many? We will get what value?
5.
Please, 5. Okay, so apparently it's more of like writing for I in range 5. Okay, but sometimes the list is so long you don't have to count it, so we use the len to just return the length of the list. So for I in range 5, and then the range 5 to, we know from here that now we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the I represents each of these values. Okay, all right. Print student name at index. So we know that this student name is a list. And then if you want to access a particular name with an index, you just use the index value, which is the 0, 1. So first we are going to use the 0, and then we move on to the 1, and then the 2, and then the 3. So whereby this is because the I over there represent the range, which is these values that we have over here. Okay, so print student I, comma, score, comma, which is this score is actually a string, and then the exam score, which is a list I. So what it does is that when you have your range over here, so each of the items in the range, so it's going to start with 0. So if I equal for I, which is I equals to 0, print student at index 0, sorry, at index 0, then comma scored, exam score at index 0. So once we are done, we move to the next one because it's a loop. So we are looping through these particular values over here. So what we are going to get is that you are going to get Amma and then the score, Kofi and then the score, Yao and the score, and that. So let's see that, the output. All right, so we have that Amma scored, Kofi scored, Yao scored, and we see that this one is a bit different from what we were doing earlier. Because this one, instead of using the individual items, we are using their index position by using the range function to return numbers that represent the index position of the items within the list. Please, I hope we understand it. Please, do you understand? Okay, great. All right, so let's make progress. But I think it's the same thing that is being repeated here. I think there is no, okay, let me just try and then break down this part, and then, so I assume that all this place is understandable, and then we know the len price is what it is doing, and we know what the range is doing, and then we know what the I2 is doing. So prices I, which is going to give you this, is equals to round. We know this round function. So prices I times 1.10. This is in the case whereby you have to multiply 1.10 to each of the items here, and then you round it to 2 decimal places. Okay. All right. So when we do that, I think we are going to get that. Okay. That's awesome. So you have your prices, which is these values over here. Okay, which have been updated, because we know that a list can be updated. So the value at index position I, whereby I represents the range of values that we have here. So you are going to replace it with the round values of that particular value at that particular index, multiply by 1.10, and round to 2 decimal places. So that's what we have over here. Very simple. Okay, just the same math that we did earlier, that we are putting it together. So, all right. So let's come to the enumerate. Okay, let me see. I think I have to. Okay, so the enumerate, what it does is that it returns all right, so when you consider this particular code, what the enumerate does is that it returns the index of the index and then the value. Okay, so there's a syntax for index comma value in enumerate list, whereby, because we know that every list has an index, so the enumerate, what it does is that it just extracts the index and then the value. Okay, and you see that this enumerate looks something similar to when we were unpacking tuples. Okay, we provide variables and then we unpack the tuple. Okay, all right, so it's the same thing. So these index represent all the indexes of that particular list, and the value represents all the values in that particular list. Okay, all right. So let's see that one also in real action. So patient names, we have that. For index, comma, name in enumerate, patient names, comma, start from 1. So we are going to start counting from 1. So print index and then the name. Let's see that one in action. So you see that we have the index 1. The reason why it's starting from 1 is that we have specifically told Python that do not start with 0. But however, when this thing is not there, Python is going to start from 0. Okay, so the start equals to 1 tells Python where he should start indexing the values in the list from. Okay, so now you have your index over here, which tells you the position. And because we've started with 1, that's why you're seeing 1 here. Okay, sorry, together. So provide the items within the revenue, and then the CST represent the items within the cost. So in other words, you can say that they are the two lists, and so you are subtracting the values of the revenue from the values of the cost. Okay, and then you are assigning it to a new variable called profit. So what you are going to do is to print product, comma, and then your profit. Okay, so we use the for loop for that particular word. So for product, comma, rev, comma, CST in the zip. So it's just using for each of the items within all these ones. Okay, so let's rerun it and let's see. So you can see that here the list has been bundled. So now I can return the product, which is this, and then the profit that we had on that particular product is 1700, and then oil and that their respective values. So this is how you can iterate through multiple lists. So the zip is for iterating through multiple lists, and then enumerate is for iterating through values using their iterating through lists using their indices and then their values. Okay. I think this also similar thing. Okay, when you have the notebook, I think you will be able. But before that, since I'm not going to explain the second one, let me find out whether you understand this one. Please, do you understand? Okay, we do right. Okay, so let me try and then make progress. So, I mean, you build the intuition yourself here. Instead of using a list, we are using a dictionary. Okay, and it's kind of very simple. Okay, so conditional logic inside loops. Okay, so this one we've seen it already. Okay, we've seen something like this already, whereby we run the for loop and then we run the if statement within the for loop. Okay, all right. I think there is something that I have to explain here. Okay, so because of the dictionary, so that we will be able to understand when we get the notebook and we are going through. Okay, so here we have a list of a number of lists over here, and we have an empty list called data set. And then we are saying that for PID, which is the patient's ID, age, and then the glucose in zip, we are bundling it together. Okay, what are we supposed to do? Record equals to a dictionary ID, PID, age equals to this. So we know how to create a dictionary, right? So we have your key and then the value. So for this ID key, we are assigning the PID, which is the ID over here, and then the age for each of the items within each of the list over there. Then once we are done, dataset.append record. So here, what we are doing is that we are appending this dictionary, okay, to our data set so that we have a list of dictionaries. You get it? So for each item, you have a dictionary. And for that dictionary, we add that dictionary to our data set, which is an empty list. So for PID1, we are going to pick this and pick that, and then we add it as a dictionary to our list. Then P002, that's the same thing on to the last loop. Okay. All right. So once we are done, we say that for record in data set. So now this data set will be a list of dictionaries, print record. So definitely you are going to have a number of dictionaries. Let's see that in real action. Okay, so you have your dictionaries over here, as I was explaining. So here, for each of the items, create a dictionary whereby you assign an ID to the value, which is a key value, key value. All right. Then once you are done, you append it to the data set. What are you appending? The record. What is the record? The dictionary over here. So after the loop is done, your dictionary, your data set over here will be appended by all the values over here. And then here we are running another for loop on the data set. So we are saying that for the items within the data set, which is the dictionaries, print the dictionaries. And we have the dictionaries printed here. All right, I think it's a bit technical, but however, it's based on everything that we've learned previously. So if you truly understand them, reading it wouldn't be easy, and it shouldn't be at all. Okay, yeah, I know that you can do this, so okay, that's fine. All right, so I think here is a combination of a for loop, if statement, if and else statement, which conditional statement, and we are having the append over here. Kind of, we are incrementing this list by what will be the right answer based on the conditions that you've provided. So once you are done, we are saying that for PID, BMI, cat in zip. So we are zipping all these three values, and then we are just printing the values like that. So once you run, you're going to have a very good format of each of the values and the category that it belongs to. So P001 has a BMI of 17.5, category underweight. And this is done automatically. You don't look through to assign to it. And this is actually the code that we've done. So the zip has been explained. We already know conditional statement and the for loop. We also know how to create an empty list and append. So I think we don't need much explanation to that. Okay, so I think it's a similar work over here, so you can also go through likewise. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Um, we are trying to modify the presentation or the format of the text here. Okay. So we create an empty list over here, and then we are saying that for depth in raw departments, meaning that for each of the departments over here, okay, within the raw department, what do you do? Strip dot title. So first, I hope you remember this strip function. Okay, do you remember? So the strip removed every empty spaces. Okay, and then the title converts all the values here to a title case. So we've applied two functions and look at how we did it. Sorry, two methods. So this is the depth, which represent the string. So what we want to do is first strip empty spaces. Then once you are done, convert it to a title case. So when you strip first, you are going to get this value stripped, and then it's still a string. So that's why we are able to apply another function, multiple functions to it. Okay, because the first function applied to this will give you a string, which can also accept this method. Okay, so, sorry, I use function, but it's actually a method. So the first method applied to this will give you a string. If it is a string, then I can still run this title case method on it. Okay, so let's see how it looks. Okay, so some of them were kind of uppercase and everything, but now we have the title case where each of the letters is converted to an uppercase. Very beautiful. You can also do for lower, as we all know. So lower, convert them to small, lowercase, and then upper. Okay, uppercase. Very beautiful, and then you can do all that you want to do on them. Okay. All right. So looping over dictionaries, it's also kind of a very beautiful thing. Let me go through it. So the loop rationale is the same. So we know that a dictionary it comprises of a key and then a value. So here the key is the name, and then the value is Kofi Mensah. The key is age, and so it's more of like a word and its definition. So the key represent the words, and then the ones on your right hand side represent their definition. So word definition or key, and then its value. So here we are saying that print patient report. Okay. All right. So which is going to print this string patient report because it is in quotation marks. Then print equals to times 30. So what it's going to do is that equal to will be repeated 30 times. Then we are saying that for field, comma value in patient.items. Now this .items method that we've written on there, we've applied to the patient dictionary. If we could remember clearly, this .items returns the key and then the value of the dictionary. So we are saying that for field and value in patient.items. So for this items is going to give you this and that, and we are representing the field, the key with the field, and the value with this value. Okay, print field.replace. So replace, then what that we are trying to say is that you are going to replace this particular string, okay, this particular string within your field, okay, within these ones. So you are going to replace it with an empty space, okay, dot title. So you are going to convert them to a title case plus, then you are going to bring your value over here. So this plus over there is not adding anything, but Python is trying to tell you that we are adding another string to it. So instead of using comma, here we are using plus. It's just a way of formatting and not any big deal. So let's see that one in action. All right, so you have print patient reports, which you have over here, the string. Oh, sorry. Okay. And then you have your equal to 30 over here. Okay. And then you have your field dot replace. So this string, we are trying, I know that you remember this particular method also. So we are replacing all these things from there with the empty space and converting it to title case. And you can see that that has happened to all the keys we have over here. So they've all been formatted properly. And then they have their values there, which is this value, which represent the values within the dictionary. Okay, right. Please, I hope we understand. Do we?
Daniel, please, I don't understand.
Okay, and please, which part? Where are you finding a challenge so that I can see how I can help you out? And please, and is she the only one too? Grace, please, which part or the whole show?
Oh, just the part you are talking about, the with this patient part. So explain how,
Okay,
yeah.
so I should explain where so that I can do a targeted explanation.
Look at the second part. Print something 30. I can't see it all. Then
This one.
fulfilled
Okay.
something, yeah.
Okay. So what happens here is that this equal to sign, this equal to over here is a string because we've placed it in quotation marks. So we are saying that repeat this string 30 times. So that's what we are seeing over here, down here. Okay. If you have moved it to 300, you will see that it will just move to 300. Okay. So we just did it for that 30 times. Okay. And then for field, value in patient.items. So the patient.items, when you run that code alone, so let me try and then comment this one and run the patient.items. Patient, okay, dot items. Okay. All right. So once I run it, let's see what we see. Let's see the output. Okay, let me just, what do we see? We see a tuple, right? A tuple, a list of tuples whereby you have the key, sorry. Okay, whereby you have the key and then its value, every key and its value, every key and its value. So in this case, let me just chop it off and get back to that. Okay, so in this case, when we say for field, comma, value in patient.items, all that we are trying to say is that for these keys, okay, and the values within your patients, which is your dictionary. So you are representing every key within your dictionary with your field and every value with this value variable. So field dot, which is the fields over here, dot replace. So if replace means that if the field, there is a field that contains this underscore, replace that underscore with an empty space. Okay, so this one has underscore, so this one will be removed and that one will be removed. And once you are done, convert all the fields, which is the keys over here, to a title case. That is, make the first letter a capital letter. Then, let me just, then add this one to it, which is this. So it's a way of, instead of using comma, you just add the plus, which is a way that you can also add two strings. Okay, so add it to this, and then what you are supposed to do is also print the value. So for each of the field, perform this action on it, then add its value to it. So when you run, that is what it is doing. So it picks the item, it picks the field, and once it picks the field, it performs this action. So if it has underscore, it replaces it with an empty space and then convert it to a title case. But if it does not have an underscore, it just bypass and then it returns its corresponding value. So basically, that is what it is doing. Please, do you get it now?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so we also have that. So we have a list of dictionary. Yeah, I think that's very simple. Okay, though it looks a bit cumbersome, but it's very simple. Okay, and please, I'm coming. Let me check nested looping. Okay, so we will end at the nested looping, and then, oh, but we could have finished too, so that we'll continue with something else on Thursday. Okay, by the way. Okay. Okay, so that we'll be able to bear with what we are doing, because I think it's a new material and then it's a bit bulky. So I'm not going to complete this one. Yeah, it's better to take your time to build understanding than to rush through, and then later you might not have the understanding. All right. So let's see it in. Let's see another one. So here we have a data set. Okay, this data set is a list of dictionaries, because we have dictionaries over here. Okay, a list of dictionaries and that. So what we are going to do is to go through every student and determine exam eligibility. Okay, and then and the eligibility criteria is score is at least 70 and attendance is at least 80. Okay. All right. So we have an exam eligibility report. So just a formatting. Okay. Now there's the real task. See that for row in dataset, meaning that for each of the dictionaries, which are items in your dataset, which is the list, eligible equals to row. So now look at what we are doing over here. Now this row represents the dictionaries. Okay. So when you pick this one dictionary, you can figure out the score by just running the name of the dictionary and then putting the score as a parameter or argument within square brackets, and that will give you the score. So what you are saying is that for each of the dictionaries within the list over here, eligible equals to the dictionary. Sorry, yeah, the dictionary. So you are kind of retrieving the value of the score. Okay, so for the each of the dictionaries, retrieve the score, check whether the score is greater than or equal to 70, and also the attendance. So for each of the dictionary, you also retrieve the attendance and check whether the attendance is greater than 80. So that is what this particular code is doing. So for the dictionaries within the data set, for each of the dictionary, check the score to see whether it's greater than or equal to 70, and also check the attendance to see if it is greater than 80. If that is the case, then the status equals to eligible if eligible, else not eligible. So now look at kind of a code that we are using to, we are writing over here. So it's more of like print if eligible. Okay, so we are going to print eligible if the eligible here, the value that we will get from this particular condition, or else print eligible if the condition over here is false. Okay, and this is just a very long formatting. I mean, though it's not too necessary, but you can just go through it and just, I mean, figure it out yourself. Okay, by the way, what I'm trying to say is that this part, okay, so instead of writing an if statement, that if eligible, okay, if eligible, so maybe print eligible. So I think let me replace it with that, because this one is a bit confused, but I'll keep it too. So print a string, so call it eligible. All right. Then else print kind of not eligible. Okay, so this whole structure, this is the short form of the entire structure. Okay, all right, so let's look at the formatting. So the formatting says a printf. So this is a way of also formatting in Python. Okay, all right, so when you use this f and you want to add a variable, you just have to use curly bracket, which is a bit cumbersome, and I haven't taken you through that much. So actually, I'm not going to explain it, but I'll do what factor it in our next studies, and then I'll explain this notation of formatting. Okay, but however, this particular code, this is the representative of it. So I'm just going to comment on this or render it inactive so that when we run, it's not going to work. But however, this particular formatting was built on this. Okay, so let me just do that and add a comment to this one instead. Okay, so let me run it and see. All right, so I told you that the formatting is cumbersome. That's why you're seeing all these things, but it's formatted a bit beautifully. Okay, all right, so what that we did was that for each of the items, the dictionaries within the list, you pick first, you look out for the eligibility criteria, which is this particular condition. So in the dictionary, is the score greater than or that? So once you are done, then the same row, which is this, so the dictionary, you return the name, okay? And then, I mean, this is just a formatting tool, okay? It kind of leaves some spaces over here. Then you bring this one there, and then you return the score, then the score, and then you return the attendance, and then you return the status, which is the eligibility status that you created over here. Okay, all right, so I think I have another bulky one here. Yeah, it looks a bit complex, but I hope you understand this particular section. Do you understand? Because we are ending at that particular point, so that if you don't, I'll go through it once more before we call it a day.
Daniel, please go through.
Okay. All right. So I'm going through again. So here, what I'm trying to say is that we have a data set, and this data set is a variable, which is actually a list, okay, because we have the square bracket here. But within the list, we have dictionaries, okay. So if we say that for row in data set, all that we are looking for is for each of the dictionaries list. So it means that each row represents each of the dictionaries. Okay. All right. Let's see that one in action by just trying to print something to the screen. Okay. So for row in data set. Okay. Let's print row. What are we seeing? So we can see that set print row. So the row is what? Is the dictionary. Which are the dictionaries within what? The data set. Okay, so if they are dictionaries, then it means that everything that I this particular row and it will work because that row is actually a dictionary. Okay, so using that same understanding, we are saying if the row are dictionaries, then I can do everything I can do on a dictionary with the rows. So we now take this row as a dictionary, and if we have a score, a particular score within the dictionary, which is this particular 65, you use the key, which is the score. So that's why we are saying that row score Okay, so row square brackets the score, which is the key over here, score. So we are saying that for all the rows within the list, look out for the scores. So that will be all the scores over here. Okay, all right, let me just use a mouse. All the scores over here to 70. Check whether it's greater than or equal to 70. And also look out for the attendance. So to look out for the attendance, say the row attendance. Okay, if it is greater than 80, so that is the first condition that we are looking for. So it will either give you a true or false. Okay, and then we are saying that if the eligible, and we know that the if statement only works when the condition is true. So if this particular condition is true, that is to say that when you pick this first person, Amma is greater than 70 and her attendance is greater than 80, that's going to give you true. So Python is saying that if it is true, that's what I was doing over here. So if eligible, meaning that if the value of the eligible is true, then you print eligible. Else, you print not eligible. So instead of writing it in this way, we just use a short notation here. So eligible, if eligible, meaning that if eligible is true, else not eligible. That is if the eligible is false. So all those who will not meet this condition will be tagged false, and all those who will meet this condition will be tagged not eligible, and all those who will meet the condition will be tagged eligible. And then this is what the formatting says. So we are still using the row because the role is still a dictionary. So now what we are going to do is to find the name. Okay, so it's going to take all the names within within your list. Okay, so it takes names, and the reason why it works is that looping works line by line. So Python will pick this one, work with all this. Then once it's done, it picks the second one, works with all that. So that's the reason why the output gives you Amma, and then it have a score and whether the person is eligible or not. Then it picks Kofi, then it calculates, then it picks Yao, then it works that way. Please, do we understand now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So there is another example over here. This one, I would like you to work on it once you have the notebook. So I will share the notebook right away after the class. Okay, so we are ending at this particular session and looking at how a bit technical that is, though it's not difficult because it's the things that we've learned, just that we are mixing it up together in order to achieve something. I will encourage all of you to go through it. Don't let it be a while too. So with understanding, maybe if you can't this evening, you can try tomorrow. You make time for it and then you just go through. All right. So as we enter into the month of July, I would like to say that because of how technical some of the things may be, when we will try to review the time of meeting, okay, so that we can also get time to also rehearse enough before we get exposed to a new material. Yes, and then we will also be very soon, I think after this, we will be working with pandas and also NumPy, and then we'll be doing some visualizations and running some t-tests on data. All right, so I would like you to hold on tight, and then as we make progress, I think by the end of this particular course, you have a very upper hand when it comes to Python, and you can actually make a boost of it, that you actually understand what it is and how you can implement it. All right, so thanks for joining today, and as I said earlier, just go over it again, and if you don't understand anything, I'm also there for you. Just get in touch and then I will respond. All right, so if there is none then we'll call it a day. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay, bye.
Same to